Welcome to the Sage Thought Leadership Podcast, building experiences that connect, remove friction, and deliver insights. Well, hi, everyone, and welcome to our podcast. I'm Ed Kless, and with me today is Andrew Schulkind. Andrew leads Andigo, a website and content marketing agency that focuses on helping B2B clients generate audience engagements through solid information architecture, great user experience, and compelling content. And a dash of common sense doesn't hurt either. At Andigo, the team is experienced in working in a range of industries and particularly passionate about working with mission-driven businesses. Andrew engages in a range of community volunteer work and is an avid guitar player, bread maker, and cyclist. He also loves collecting meaningless trivia and once broke into prison. Welcome to the Sage Thought Leadership Podcast, Andrew Schulkind.
Thanks, Ed. Great to be here.
Well, first of all, Andrew, why do you do what you do?
Why do we do what we do? It is to go way back in history. When we first started, the web was a place where marketing was happening, but there were a lot of tricks that were very focused on mechanical things like white text on a white background to get to the top of a search engine results page. And as the search engines got hip to that and started focusing on making their algorithms more about content on page, that's when we really hit our stride. So for me, it's really all about message. I've got some pretty good coding skills I've developed over the years, in part to be able to talk to my technology folks. And I am nobody's idea of a coder for real, and certainly nobody's idea of a designer. So it really is all about message, and that's why I do what I do.
Well, talk to me a little bit about why you think it's so important to have your marketing message align with your customer experience.
That's such a great question, Ed. I think the best way to think about that is to understand that your marketing is making a promise. And that promise is what your audience, the folks who have been convinced of that promise or who are in need of what you're offering and desperate for that solution that you are promising, that's what they're after. And if your customer experience doesn't align with that, either in what you are providing, which would really be bad, or the manner in which you're providing it, sort of the personality, you're going to run into trouble. So if your marketing is all very cheeky and you are really a button-down kind of person, and that's the kind of organization that you run or that you market for, you're going to have trouble. That's not what folks are expecting. And, if they get a buttoned-up bank and they're expecting Gary V or vice versa, that's not really a great alignment.
So is a fair word to use there? It's got to be authentic.
Yeah, that's a really good word. That is a very popular word. Maybe it's become a little bit overused, but I would say that if you're going to pretend to be something and not be authentic, maybe you can get away with it, but you better be doing it pretty consistently. And it's a whole lot easier not to remember whether or not you've got the costume on, right, and are in character, just to be authentic. And that way everything matches straight through from first touch point through to the sale, fulfillment, and beyond.
Mm-hmm. I think it's attributed to Mark Twain, but he said something like that the key to life is sincerity, and when you can learn how to fake it,
and you've got it made. That's right.
then you've got it made. But I think also it's more important too. This alignment goes just beyond the personality and message, but also if your service is broken, all the marketing in the world is only going to make you deliver a worse service faster.
That's right. Until folks get hip to that and are just not going to sign up for it anymore.
So the first rule of marketing is really make sure your service is right. Fix your service, right? Is that fair?
Yeah, that's absolutely fair. And that alignment, that brings up another point worth talking about. It's not just external, your alignment, right? Making sure that what you're delivering, it works with what you're saying, but making sure that what you're promising matches what your team is prepared to promise, to deliver, what they're comfortable doing, how they're comfortable doing it, and making sure they buy into the marketing and the message. All that is sort of critical in, as you put together mission, vision, values, that kind of thing, a tagline. Everyone really needs to be on board with that.
And before we started talking, you also said you had some thoughts on jargon. Most people don't want you to use jargon. And you said, well, it depends. So talk a little bit about that.
Sure. This conversation has been happening a lot recently, and it came out of a post I saw online, someone talking about how bad Jargon was and the experience he had walking into his local neighborhood supermarket where there was a sign over the butcher counter that said, "We will spatchcock your chickens." And his feeling was, well, that's not appropriate here. No one knows what spatchcocking is. That's kind of a very high-end cuisine kind of a thing. You've really got to be into cooking to know that. And if you're just in a supermarket, you don't know what that means. That belongs at a specialty butcher shop. And my thought was, gosh, I really don't agree with that, because you don't want to use jargon in a way that makes people feel stupid, right? That is, I think, the cardinal sin there, because no one likes being made to feel stupid. And no one likes having to admit they don't know things. But something like that up there, if someone knows that, the person who needs to go to the supermarket anyway to pick up canned goods and napkins, whatever else they're going to show up for, if they see that sign and realize, hey, there are times that I just don't feel like going down the block or 10 miles away to the butcher shop, I can come here and have them spatchcock my chicken, pick up all the other staples that I need, and I'm on my way. So I think it's important to, maybe be aspirational a little, even if you think your audience doesn't know it. And I think it's also critical to be aware of where you are in the buying cycle. If you're talking to someone who's brand new to chickens and cooking, probably not an opportune time to talk about spatchcocking. They really just don't have a frame of reference at all. But if you're much later in the sales cycle and you're talking to someone who has already done the research and already figured out there are a ton of different ways to cook a chicken to really, beat this this metaphor to death, then that makes sense. You should be talking about it, because they're going to trust you more because they know that you're talking the language. You understand what you're talking about in the ins and outs, and it's not just supermarket chicken.
One of the things I feel strongly about, though, is, and I think I agree with you, because if you didn't say spatchcock your chicken, what would you say?
Smash it down real hard till you break the bones in its back, I guess.
Yeah, there'd be a much longer sign, obviously. Yeah. But I think one of the challenges, though, also is 3-letter acronyms, or any kind of acronyms. I think that tends to confuse people. At least you can use them, but spell them out maybe the first time that they're appearing in your work. Does that make sense?
Yeah, agreed. I think you're better to err on the side of caution there. And as you say, spell it out the first time you use it, and someone will be like, oh yeah, of course I know that. But as long as you don't continue to, pound away at that, like, hey, I'm talking down to you, that's another way of making, people uncomfortable and pushing them away from your content.
Well, Andrew, we have an exit question that we ask all of our guests, and that is, who is a hero of yours, and why are they a hero?
I'm not going to name one person, and maybe this is a bit of a cop-out, but I will name all of the clients we work with at mission-driven businesses. We really love working with folks who are out there, this is B Corps and folks like that, double bottom line companies who are trying to do good in the world while they make a profit. And working with folks like that is just it's so much fun, because there's almost always a story, an origin story about why they're doing something to try and change their industry or make the world a better place. And it's a really interesting story to tell usually. So love working with those folks, love that they're trying to make the world a better place, and love trying to help them.
All right. And lastly, Andrew, how can somebody contact you?
Andrewgo.com is probably the best place to reach me and the team. You can also find me on LinkedIn. Do a quick search. There is another Andrew Schulkind out there. I think he goes by Andy, and he actually is a somewhat distant cousin, but you'll find me.
All right. Andrew Schulkind, leader of Andigo, thanks so much for being a guest on the Sage Thought Leadership Podcast.
Thank you, Ed.
Review and subscribe by searching your podcast player of choice for Sage Thought Leadership Podcast.